Hey guys, yeah, this is episode 32 of the Rugby Recap. You have myself, Rugby Itch, as well as the Kiwi lads, but we also have our first guest of the podcast, and we do have Distracted Sports. Tony, how are you?
Very good. Am I the first?
You're the very first guest.
Ba-boom. Okay, this is a massive, what an honor to be the first. Absolutely. Wow. This is the first for me being first. Fantastic. Great to be here with you, lads. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. But yeah, I guess just in terms of, I guess the first rugby topic that's kind of out there is really now that Joe Schmidt is now in charge of the Wallabies. So just first of all, just what's your kind of take on that?
First thing I want to say is I got to call out Hamish. I need you to keep it together, buddy, because I've seen you. Look at you. Look at your face.
I'm so sleep deprived at this point. My cheekbones don't lower.
I feel like I'm sitting here just trying to be enthused, trying to be a peak performance professional. Look at this guy. I mean, really, keep it on task, okay?
To be fair, like me and George tried to film a reaction video earlier on for one of the other channels. We were looking at meat cooking, and I couldn't stop laughing. So I'm in a very weird mood.
You're cooking your meat, were you?
No, we weren't, but we were watching people do it, and I couldn't stop laughing at the noises that the meat was making.
Is that like it's not a euphemism for masturbation, that is it? Like,
no, not quite. No, we do that after we've done the reactions.
Right. See, that makes sense.
Separately, or a bit of a Dutch rudder situation.
If you close your eyes, you don't know who's doing it. You know.
Well, have you heard the Dutch? You guys know what the Dutch rudder is, don't you? You know what the Dutch rudder? Okay, you don't.
I'm quite innocent, even though I've just said that.
Hamish doesn't know what the Dutch rudder is. So the Dutch rudder is you and a couple of friends. Okay, is this what you're going for, Tim? When you asked me about what was happening with the Six Nations, what was the question?
No, this is so off topic. But
okay, we'll talk about Dutch ruddering afterwards, Hamish.
Yeah,
I'll tell you all about it. Okay.
I'm sorry.
And sorry. You had a question about rugby. Yeah, rugby.
Yeah, no. So just what's your with Joe Schmidt obviously now in charge?
Joe Schmidt.
Yeah, Joe Schmidt.
Oh,
so
good.
Now in charge of the Wallabies. What's your take?
Look, I think I'm enthused about it, but also slightly feel odd about it, just due to the fact that he was so recently with the All Blacks. And if it was like a regular time when the Wallabies were really, really strong and had, a high caliber international team that was challenging us and beating us every year, I would be like, oh gosh, that's pretty close to the bone, them getting an assistant coach a year after he's left the team. But this is not that situation. We're talking about a nation that's on its knees rugby wise. They're in a very, very bad way. Eddie Jones is really shat the bed with them in the last year, and that country and rugby in general in that country is in real strife, is paling in comparison and just being completely dominated and ripped apart by NRL in a lot of ways. So I think that it's actually a really, really positive move. Is he going to be the golden goose? I'm not too sure. They've still got an immense amount of challenges, but in terms of an appointment, I think it's a pretty great appointment, but with some serious challenges to overcome, because in all seriousness, all we have is Australia. I know we've got, Fiji and Drua and the Moana Pacifica and all that sort of stuff, but, one team each. But we really, really rely on having a strong Australia. And if we don't have a strong Australia, that's going to selfishly, you got to think about it, that's going to impact New Zealand negatively, not only just within our Super Rugby competitions, but within the Rugby Championship. Argentina are not always strong contenders anyway, so we do need Australia to be really strong. So having Joe Schmidt on board as a steadying hand, hopefully he can take them through and challenge at least in that Lions series in a couple of years. But so I think it's a great move. I'm all for it, and I don't want to lose the Bledisloe Cup to them. I don't think we're going to this year, but who knows? Joe Schmidt he's a professor. He's a Professor X type character. He knows some shit. So, and I also think on our recent podcast with 2 Cents Gets Distracted, Mark brought up a really interesting point: the fact that during that Lion series, it's going to be Schmidt versus Farrell. So the master and the apprentice. That's going to be a fun dynamic to kind of witness. But let's get back to the Dutch ruddering, boys. Let's go for it. I gave a serious opinion for about 2.5 minutes there. I'm exhausted.
That was awesome. That was impressive.
Like you definitely wanted to throw some sort of dick joke in there as well.
Yeah, like it was. I was just waiting for it.
Yeah. Sorry. I know. There we go. Okay, but no, I think it's good. What do you guys think?
I think that at this stage, like you said, Australia have dug themselves such a hole that it is going to take a lot of time, and maybe we only see a little tiny bit of improvement under Joe Schmidt. But as long as they get some sort of improvement, like it can't get worse than their last coach. Worst result in a Rugby World Cup, ditches them to go coach a team that we all knew he was going to go coach anyway, but locked himself in for 5 years to then after 1 year go, oh, mate, I'm out of here. I'm going back to Japan.
Yeah.
Even though Japan didn't do that badly in the last Rugby World Cup. Like, yes, they did struggle in terms of not being able to get out of their group, but, like, they've actually made some very good improvement lately. So it was kind of surprising to see that they actually wanted a loser like Eddie Jones of current form, of course, with the Wallabies.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Joe Schmidt, I think it's a step in the right direction, but unfortunately it may only be a few steps of a mile that Australian rugby still need to be able to compete and be able to be once again a powerhouse, because it's been quite a while since we've seen that.
Yeah,
no, it has. It's one of those like where with just Joe Schmidt, I mean, like you said, Tony, like he just brings in so much experience, with his previous jobs, and again working with the All Blacks for a bit, and obviously what he did with Ireland in the past. Like he has that CV where you look at it like, okay, he can definitely do the job in terms of like the Wallabies setup. But the question is that as the Wallabies on a whole, as you were mentioning, just they're not to the level of what the other teams are, and it's going to take a lot to kind of take that jump up again. It's interesting because, I mean, you have to look down towards also like the Super Rugby level as well in terms of the teams. And there's always been that kind of predicament or kind of question where should there be 5 teams or should there be one removed to have more kind of be more competitive on that Super Rugby front? And so there's all these kind of questions. But yeah, at the end of the day, with Joe Schmidt, he's definitely I personally wanted Cheka in, honestly. Just I wanted Cheka to be the guy that kind of took over the Wallabies, but I understood from a Rugby Australia standpoint they kind of didn't see eye to eye, so that was really it was unlikely to happen. But I think Joe Schmidt, out of all the candidates that could have gone for besides Cheka, was probably the right guy. And again, he's just someone who I believe can help the Wallabies kind of take the next step. But yeah, gosh, that Lions tour is going to be very, very fascinating to watch. And yeah, it's going to really, because again, I'm not even sure how it's going to work. Like, what if he loses it to like 2-1? Will the Wallabies consider? Will he then get to extend his contract to the Rugby World Cup for 2027? Because again, we have to remember this contract ends after the Lions tour, so it's really going to kind of depend on that what happens there. So we'll see that.
I thought that 2-year contract was more at Schmidt. I presumed that was actually more at Schmidt's end than it was at Rugby Australia. I think they would, in a heartbeat, get him to sign for 4 years, considering the success he had at Ireland and also, the good things he did with the All Blacks when he came in, turning that camp around in a big way as well. Yeah. I think with him, talking about the fact that he, left Ireland in the first place for family reasons, wanted to be closer to New Zealand, all that sort of stuff, that I think it was probably him going, look, this is a super toxic environment. I don't know what the border's like. I don't know what kind of resources are going to be allocated. But that cherry of playing the Lions is probably the thing that I'll hang on to. And look, if it is going well, potentially we'll talk about extending it back then. But I honestly think if they scrounge through the next couple of rugby championships, don't do awfully well, head in the right direction, show signs of improvement from where they are, and put in a sort of a not a tradesman-like performance, but a performances they can be proud of against the British and Irish Lions. Even if that is like 2-1 or 3-0, or even if they win, of course, if they win, that'd be amazing. I think they'll take him again. I don't think it's going to be much based on because where they are right now. But the other thing I was kind of thinking about is like, who knows what is actually going to happen? We're all kind of writing off Australia, but if you look at like England got beaten by France, by what was it, 40 points in Twickenham last year, something like that.
Oh yeah,
we all thought that they were the worst English team of all time, and they ended up losing by 1 point, pretty unluckily, to the South Africans in a semi-final. Like, sport's funny. things can turn around, momentum can change. So it's going to be great to see what Australia can do this year, but it's a hell of a challenge, and it'll be interesting. Some pretty interesting coaches all around. Like, I'm really looking forward.
Yeah.
We're jumping into the rugby championship, but the Rusty Razor Schmidt battle with Contemploni in the background, that'll be fascinating. That'll be really fascinating.
Yeah. No, it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. And again, with Schmidt, like, it's just one of those where when it comes down towards that, like, just Lions tour, as you said, it kind of will maybe dictate what happens with him. It's gonna. I mean, there's just so much, like, where even like this year, I think the Wallabies are playing Wales, if I'm not mistaken, within the July International. So that's, in my opinion, I mean, not to downplay Wales, but I think that's probably the perfect team for Australia to kind of play first in terms of, like, international kind of series, and then kind of build onto that, obviously going into the Rugby Championship. But yeah, we'll see what happens, because I'm not really sure how it works. Because I forgot if there's like a Rugby Championship before the Lions tour, before that happens in 2025, or if it's after. I'm not really sure how that works, because I think it may just be July internationals just for for New Zealand and South Africa and Argentina, whereas Australia just play there. So this may be the only time we actually get to see a Rugby Championship. Kind of the full version, and then
is it a bridge during a Lions year? Because the last Lions tour was last Lions tour was 2017 when they came to New Zealand, and they played the Super Rugby teams at the end of the Super Rugby, which was leading into the July internationals.
Exactly.
So, I guess it's at that time of year. So it does replace the July internationals, doesn't it?
Yeah, because even like the one after, there was the one in South Africa as well, but of course that was during COVID, so that kind of was a bit of a.
Oh, that's right. There was that one.
That was a bit of like a weird one.
It got zero buzz, that one, didn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, it should have.
They were allowed much of a crowd either, were they, for the Lions tour? And that's kind of what makes the British and Irish Lions tour the touring side, but. They weren't allowed to really have anyone anywhere near that ground, I don't think. And even if they did, I think they had to be really separated, so there was a bit of a lack of atmosphere. But the question is, 2025, can Australia actually fill a stadium of British and Irish Lions and Australian supporters? Because, of course, we've seen Super Rugby attendance starting to dwindle more and more for the Australians. We've seen the Rebels admit that they've got a lot of debt and they might not even be a Super Rugby franchise in the coming years. Can they get the numbers, and where would you like to see those matches take place? I think they're already confirmed, aren't they? But where can they sell out the British and Irish Lions tour?
I think they can, mate. Like, the British and Irish Lions is a massive, massive international event, especially within rugby. Probably with other sports, not so much, but there are still I've spent a lot of time in Australia. I've worked for 2 Australian companies, and I know a lot of rugby fans in Australia, Australians who love the game, who love the sport, growing up watching it, and they're depleted, destitute, they're gutted about the way things are going currently. So I think there's those hardcores, those guys that are real diehard fans, and there are more of them than you think. But those guys are still a hard yakka getting them to a bloody Melbourne Rebels game on a wet night in March. It's gonna be, it's tough for those guys to get out. But when the Lions are in town, that's a real draw card. And if Schmidt is able to point them in the right direction, they'll start to get back some of those fair weather fans. They'll start to get a little bit of hype. They'll start to get the Aussie battler sort of, we're coming back. We've been in the doldrums. We're on there's the narrative there. If they can build into that narrative, there's a great story there. But it all just comes down to performances on the park at the end of the day. And that's the big question. What are they going to do? How are they going to do it?
Yeah.
I think that segues perfectly, Tim, into one of the other topics that you have for the podcast, talking about the story of the Wallabies.
Exactly. So this is going on the topic of the documentaries. Of course, we all know that there's the Six Nations Full Contact documentary that is out already, but there's a new one going to be coming out within late February around the Wallabies inside kind of like their 2023 Rugby World Cup in terms of exclusive access towards that. So that'll be interesting, and that's on Stan Sport, I believe. But
the genre is horror film.
Exactly.
Car crash television, that stuff.
Exactly. Hey, but to be fair, I'm actually excited for it because it's always one of those like where I mean I've always said from a football perspective, like there's the ones where they've done the season, it kind of goes bad for them at the end, but it's always kind of like for me, I actually like those the best in terms of the documentaries I've seen football wise. It's like Spurs or Arsenal or whatever.
There's a great documentary series called We Are Sunderland. And it follows like a very, very passionate group of Sunderland. Yeah, Sunderland till I die. Yeah. And you keep thinking, like, because you watch so many documentaries where the team just gets up at the end and gets it done. Exactly. But every time they have a chance to do something half decent, they shit the bed. And you're like, oh. And it just goes from worse to worse to worse to worse. And it's just like, and it's actually just very compelling.
That's why I'm gonna like it. Like I hate it like where like there's like the one where City where like City they're just the best team anyway in football for what it is. It's like, okay, you already know they're gonna win everything. So I'd rather have a team which is kind of like mid. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what I mean, especially with Eddie Jones, obviously get the inside look in terms of how he coached them. But
be interesting to see if he goes into the sheds and explains his meeting with Japan and stuff.
Exactly.
I never met with them, but and I did have a drink with an Asian man at some stage. He might have been with a rugby team. I think
that's how the conversation went. Yeah, I think there was something like that. But I mean, Hamish, you said there was another one out, of course, in terms of documentaries as well that you saw.
I did. I got it advertised on YouTube the other day, and it is a documentary about refereeing in rugby and the abuse that referees have received. What type of documentary were you thinking, Tony?
I thought you were going to mention that there was going to be like another Chasing Sun. They're Chasing the Sun, like the South African.
Well, there is. That's the other one as well.
All right. I heard that they were going to call it Catching Some Z's. Actually, this one, because the style of play that South Africa plays is so boring that it puts everyone to sleep.
You got me in. I was like,
you had Tim enticed. He was like,
what? I was like, no, that can't be. That can't be.
Catching some Z?
No, that can't be.
He was about to write it down in his notes.
I was like, no, there's no chance.
Referees, of course, throughout the Rugby World Cup were well documented as being some of the most talked about parts of the game, unfortunately. And even just the short little snippet that they show, like the amount that the referees, of course, we already know this because we have seen the messages and the tweets and everything that people send, but like it just showed like behind the scenes type thing of like what their family deals with as well. And it seemed like it was quite gut wrenching, to be honest, from just the short little trailer that I saw.
I empathize with them in terms of what they go through, but I think rugby is not at all special in referee abuse. If anything, it's light on referee abuse. Like if you look at football, I'm sure those guys get absolutely destroyed online, and they get destroyed on the pitch. Like you look at any of the American sports, you look at the fight sports, so it's all about the referees and the umpires being complete shitheads. It sucks. It's not good, but it's as tale as old as time. Like any sporting fixture you go to at any stage of life, there's people going, "What are you talking about, ref?" on the sidelines, and it's not good, especially at children's level and all that sort of stuff. But especially at professional level, it's referees cop it because people see things in their own way due to bias. It's just a part of the gig, and it sucks even more now. Like it's just been amplified by the fact of social media. It used to be just they get shit at the pitch. And then they might get a couple of comments from, a pundit here or there during some of the pre-build-up and stuff like that, or reviews of the game. Nothing online, nothing that would get to them on a Tuesday night while they're having their dinner. But it's so like invasive now. So I think if anyone's out there trying to consider, and we need referees. If you're trying to consider being a referee, like we can jump up and down. I'm really trying to catch my bias as much as possible and not bitch about referees as much as possible. But you do catch yourself going, "That's bullshit," because everyone has their own natural bias. But you're not going to change human nature. You're not going to change the way people are. You're not going to change people venting and tweeting something while after they've had a couple of drinks or they're taking a shit on a Tuesday night. Like the people are going to do that. It would take some wild social engineering to bleak that out of the general public. It's just going to happen. So if you are considering being a professional referee, it sucks. It really sucks. It's unfortunate, but you need to live in the world that you need to accept the reality you're in, not the reality you wish to be. Basically, as a reality of being a professional referee, you're gonna get shit. You're gonna get people saying horrible, nasty stuff about you, and your family may get exposed to that too. And that's just something you probably need to build into into the package. I'd say. Then I'm not saying it's acceptable. I'm just saying it is what it is. It sucks. It's shit. It ain't gonna change. Am I being too cynical? What do you think?
No, I don't think you are actually. It's one of those where it's a tough position to even go into, and like again, if fair play to obviously people who actually want to become referees, like all for it actually, because like you said, we need more referees in the game for the future. But it's just one of those where. I mean, you kind of know the stakes going into it. I mean, you should be aware of that before you kind of say, I want to become a referee. And again, even if the pay isn't like, the greatest in terms of when you're compared to the different other jobs that are out there. So it's one of those where, it's a gut-wrenching job. But I would say you are right in terms of like, when you're looking at rugby referees comparing to like other sports, it's definitely not like as bad. But again, it's still, I'll be definitely fascinated to see this documentary because it will also give a bit of an insight and obviously towards the different referees in the game we love and kind of just what they've had to kind of go through in terms of abuse. Because at the end of the day, obviously, we obviously need to try not to have abuse towards referees if possible. But it's just one of those where, like you said, it comes with that job. So it's very hard to like balance the two out at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, what do you think? What do you think, Hamish?
What's with you, Hamish? What's wrong with you?
Well, I was just thinking of the quote on the shirt. We need to not have abuse for referees. Well, I can't even remember what the quote was, but the way it was worded, it was like, unless we need to, just
unless we have to do it.
You're not going to get rid of it, but just don't have it that much.
Don't abuse referees unless you really need to.
Exactly, yeah.
Pretty much.
There's a button. It's like, okay. There.
There's a line, and every once in a while, as long as you're on the right side of that line. Yeah, it's a tough gig. TMOs, I think, have made it even more difficult, to be honest. And I don't even want to say that the TMOs deserve that kind of level of, abuse as well. But
I want at least TMO involvement. That's all I want. I want TMOs to make calls on try, no try. That's it.
Exactly right. And I mean, the World Cup proved that you can have games without TMO heavy involvement. I've still mentioned it. One of the best games to watch of the Rugby World Cup was Tonga versus Romania. And the reason for that was because the game had very, very little stoppages. Whereas you look at some of the other games and they took about 2 hours and 5 minutes to complete.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about who won or whether the calls were right or anything like that. But I thought that the World Cup had the bunker was taking a little bit of the back seat for a lot of the games. They weren't getting overly involved. They're letting the game flow. But for whatever reason, the guy in the final, I don't know his name. We don't need to name him even. He decided that he had a suit on. It was going to be his big moment, and he was so incredibly involved. And I got to the point in the final. I was watching a screen, watching a referee watching a screen of a guy in a room with three other guys watching 16 screens, and I was like, "What is this? This is not rugby." Like it just got ridiculous. It was that World Cup. I know their stakes are about as big as they can possibly get. You want to eliminate mistakes. I'm not saying any of the calls are wrong. I'm not bitching about the referees, but the way in which that was refereed is completely untenable for like. Getting new fans on board and growing the game, and to do that in the showpiece event was just a real shot. Was us shooting ourselves in the foot as a sport, really. I thought.
What would you say, Hamish? Then on that point, in terms of like, I guess TMO,
almost just call me Sir Tim.
Sir.
Sound like a desk game out there. I was about to be very, very honoured, but yeah, I think that in a weird way. And this is, of course, not a complete comparison, but a lot of people enjoy rugby union because it's not NFL. There's not 50 stoppages and there's not 5-minute breaks in between when certain things are happening, whereas the TMO has brought the game more towards start, stop. Like I think it was even a URC game the other week, and we had probably about 4 minutes where they looked at the same try over and over again to see if it was try or no try, 15 angles. still couldn't come up with a decision. So those kind of things, as a fan, when you want to get engaged in what is happening and, you know, you want to be on the edge of your seat as they're slowly looking through a replay, you know, you're kind of sitting back, you're going, geez, I could go for a piss now and I'd be back by the time they've finished this.
You could go for a what, sir?
I was going to say,
oh yeah, that's a swear word in some places, isn't it?
My God,
it's just Kiwi slang, isn't it?
Jeez.
Do you give your dad a blowjob with those lips? Yeah.
Well, that's a new one. I haven't heard that saying before. Is that a North Island thing?
That's a North.
Yeah. Sorry about that. You might need to bleep that.
Maybe a little bit.
But I would say, just in terms of like my take on, I guess, like TMO, like I know I would just say from the footballing perspective, like VAR gets so much controversy, and it's like there's so much wrong with VAR, I would say, with football, that it makes TMO look good, I would say, in rugby. And I actually think when you look at like even like football fans are like, why can't we just have just do what they do with TMO? Just make it simple, shorten that. Because with VAR, it's like whatever you think the time is in terms of what the guys look at in terms of a clip, say if it's no try, it's probably double or triple that amount in football in terms of the time they take. And it's one of those where I do agree that that maybe, because I know with VAR, I guess the good thing about VAR, what they do with football, like Tony was mentioning, is where they just show you the replay of what they're looking at only like I think like twice, and then he just makes a decision just like that on the spot. Whereas with rugby, of course, you have the TMO, but you're seeing like you have a picture of them looking at the cameras, and you're like, okay, this is pointless. I don't need to see them looking at cameras. Just show me the replay just 2 times, and I'll be good. So that's definitely something I guess rugby can definitely change for the future. But no, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of do that doc. There's a lot of docs. But you did mention earlier that there is also the other one around the Safka one, chasing his son. I believe it's
catching some Z's.
Catching some. Yeah.
Catching some Z's. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, catching some Z's. Yeah. Do you know when that is out? Because I actually don't know the release of that.
Well, there's actually been a problem in production with that, actually. They've got to the point where they've got all the raw footage and they've taken it to the editors, but the editors are going through the footage of South Africa playing, but they keep falling asleep because it's so impossible.
I knew there was something coming. I just waiting. Where's the little...
I also saw something about South Africa, and it said that they were just using up the amount of effort needed to win by the 1 point rather than using extra effort. What's the point in using up extra if you can win by 1? So
I heard something that South Africa were actually using 8 forwards in the final off the bench rather than 7. So
yeah, that's true. What's the point of using your wingers when just put?
Who needs Chesley Toby? Like who needs people like that? You know?
Exactly. You know,
just get another Quagga Smith on, he'll be all good. But
I reckon
Quagga's a beast.
They should have put Oxen Che on as number 11. Boy, oh boy.
That would have been a good watch. That would have been a good watch. I did actually see the Quagga Smith's out actually for 5 months now, so he's not going to be available for that Ireland test, but for the 2 tests, because the third one they're playing is Portugal, if I believe. But
is that their July series that's going to be against Ireland? Is it?
Yeah. So South Africa's going to play Ireland twice in South Africa.
Shame that it's not a 3-match test series.
I don't get that as well, but also I'm kind of happy that also the third test is against Portugal. So it's not like a usual test you see. It's like kind of against a tier 2 nation, which is good for the game. But actually,
it's going to be wildly unsatisfying if it's 1-1.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, no, exactly.
Here's a question for you, Hamish. Is that how you say your name, Hamish?
Sometimes, it depends on how drunk I
am. Hamish, who are the All Blacks playing in the July series?
I think we've got.
Come on, man.
England.
Oh, yeah, nice.
I think that's in November, because I've actually seen England's test series, because I think they've
got... No. I'm not talking about the November series. I'm talking about, how we have the little July. We've got
little July.
Well, Hamish, you're right still. You're still right. It's England.
Do we play England again?
We play England.
We love England, don't we?
England.
You're playing. I believe you're playing England twice. For some reason, like they're playing only twice.
I hate 2-match series. I'll say it right now. I'll say it again.
Agree. Like, the idea around, we had this whole conversation in the past around the blood or so, around like, it should, I mean, actually you should tell this because it was actually your kind of thing. Tell Tony about
Hamish.
what the blood or so should be like in terms of the matches.
3 matches, obviously, is the way that they should go, isn't it, Tony? Like 2 matches. If you win the first one, in the All Blacks case, then no matter what happens in the second, if Australia win, it's a drawn series. New Zealand keep the trophy. If Australia win the first one, New Zealand, they win the second one, they keep the trophy. I feel like there needs to be the decider. Test cricket at the moment is the perfect example of that. Australia versus the West Indies. West Indies pull off one of the best upset wins in cricket history, and it's a drawn series. We don't get to see a third match.
Didn't they? Some years they managed to get a third in there, and they'll play it in like Japan or Hong Kong or something like that. Don't
yeah,
they?
so that's what I was suggesting. Like where they should do the 2 matches, obviously what counts obviously for the Rugby Championship, but then you have the third one decider, which is the decider for the blood or so. But you play it, kind of out.
If we play it, I think it'll be
and you get good money from that.
I think they kind of they might want to wrap up that series, but I always thought it would be nice if they play the 2 matches and then the third they play on the way to Europe, for the November series, and that's why it's good to do it in Asia or something like that on the way there. Or even do a stop in the US or something on the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the only thing is you kind of it loses its excitement when you try and stretch out. If it was 3-match series over the period of 2 months, that would be exciting. But if you play 2 matches in August,
and then you have to wait for one,
and then you wait for 3 months, all the momentum's gone. You're like, what is this a dead rubber? Who's what? Like you've lost the hype behind it. They kind of did they change to the 2-match series when they went from Tri Nations to Rugby Championship when they brought the 4 teams in. So I think when it used to just be South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia, they had more time for that third fixture. So it's been since.
I think it has been. I think you're right. Yeah, I think since Argentina have come in, they changed that.
Yeah, my dad said that it was actually when Australia had the Bledisloe, they said they wanted it as a 2-match series. Of course, probably because it would be easier to be able to retain and look how that went.
On the arse. Because it's a hell of a trophy to win back. It's hard to win back. You have to win both games. And they have not had it since 2003. It's ridiculous.
Crazy.
I was younger than you guys. what was it? So 20 years. I was 20. So I'm 40 now. Half my life we've had. It's 21 years. Shit, it's 2024. Bugger.
It's another one.
That's a lot.
It's an insane amount of time, you guys, you wouldn't have any memories of Australia lifting that Bledisloe other than the pictures you've seen.
I think in my lifetime, I think I've only seen the Wallabies beat the All Blacks, I think 3 times. It's one of those. I could be wrong with that, but it's one of those where I've only seen them.
They often get a win here and there.
I could be wrong with that. Actually, maybe it's been more than 3. I think maybe I'm being too harsh there. Maybe it's I'd say 7, maybe throughout 2010 to now they've probably had 7 wins. I can think of another one I saw live, which is the Hong Kong one, and then. They've also beaten them a few times, obviously in Australia. Well, that's the only place they've ever beat the.
Was that 2009 or 2010 or something when they beat us in Hong Kong?
That was 2010. Yeah, I mean that was mind blowing. The whole thing around that, and James O'Connor obviously kicking that final penalty, and the year
Beaver shat the bed in that game.
Exactly, that's the whole story with it. Around the Rugby World Cup the year after.
I remember watching it live, going, "Beaver, just kick it out."
We were all, I think that's one of the only times I was supporting the All Blacks for that day. So I was just in distraught really, and I was like, holy, who is this guy? James O'Connor, I hate him now. It's but now I actually have a lot of respect for him. But it's just it's back then it wasn't the same thing.
Yeah, they've had a rough ride in the Bledisloes. Hopefully, well, I'm always like, yes, we've won it, but it is getting a little bit ridiculous because it was a lot of fun when I was growing up in the 90s. Like, we'd win one year, they'd win the next year, we'd win next year, or we've won it 2 years in a row. Man, this is a dynasty. Like, but now it's just a bit silly, and it's almost like. Yeah, and now that when they win it, they're like, oh, and they're like, what does it mean to you, Artie? And it's like, it means everything. And I was like, does it really mean everything? Well, and I think it would be a massive deal if Australia were able to get it. Imagine if Australia were able to do it this year. Whew, Schmitty. Oh, and Razor would be just in the shit if he loses that.
Yeah. I honestly think like it's bigger to win the Bledisloe against the All Blacks than them winning the Lions tour. There may be a bold claim, but I actually think if they were to retain the Bledisloe in just say this year, or because again I'm not sure if it works next year or not. I believe we've said it won't. But if they were to do it this year, then I honestly think Australia would consider right then just saying, okay, if he even loses like 2-1 in the Lions tour, they're still gonna kind of offer him the contract just because that's history.
Who was the last All Black coach to lose the Bledisloe Cup? So you don't want to be the first coach since.
Well, it was Eddie, right? It was Eddie who got the last. He was the coach of the Wallabies when they last won it.
John Mitchell was a coach in like 2001, 2002, 2003. He got them to that. So it would have been John Mitchell. So and then after John Mitchell was Wayne Smith was the coach, and then
then Graham Henry. Yeah.
It's that's a Wayne Smith, Graham Henry, Shag, Fozzie, and that's a lot of coaches. And these aren't coaches that have had quick 10 years. These are coaches that have been around for many years.
So. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Rugby, what a sport.
I love it. But that's the thing. State of origin, I feel like that's the kind of atmosphere you want for the Bledisloe. The fact that, yes, there are years where one side does get the better of the opposition quite a few times, but then all of a sudden the next year, a couple of new players come in and all of a sudden, Queensland get it or the Blues get it. And I feel like that kind of like seesaw, yes, a lot of All Black supporters have said, we want competitive Bledisloe series. That's the one thing we want. We want to see Australia win it. But do they really? Like deep down, I feel like there's a lot of people who say they want to see the Aussies holding it. But then when they realise what that entails, they'll go, hang on.
I think it's unhealthy that we've won it this many times, but I'm still going to be gutted when and if we lose it. I'll still be like, why do bad things happen to good people? It'll be, but it needs to happen at some stage.
To be fair, that's how I feel with the Springboks. I just feel like we've won it back to back now, so we might as well just let someone else win it now for the next one.
You know what? The good thing you can take solace in, you may have won it back to back, but you're actually killing the game, so no new fans come on board. So enjoy that.
I love that. You're doing our sport a disservice. Just stop it. God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you may win, but at the cost of everyone.
That's how I feel about the Crusaders. They're ruining Super Rugby for me. Like every single year, I'm just like the Blues are going to do it, and then I'm like, okay, why do I keep saying?
There we go. We're on the same page. Sorry, I talked to Hamish while he asked me to do this, and I know you're a Bok fan, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna shit on the Boks when I do this. But I love the Springboks, an incredible team. What a wonderful team.
No, I have so much respect for the All Blacks because I support the Auckland Blues, so it's just one of those where I've always had an admiration for a lot of the Kiwi players.
I'm a big Lions supporter, not the British and Ireland.
Back in the day, the Lions they had a good team back in the day in Super Rugby.
Well, they produce really good rugby players, but they always get poached and taken to better teams.
Exactly. Sadly. Yeah, no, it's just one of those. But I actually saw there's a thing on. It was just rumored, but they're thinking for Super Rugby to actually get a South African team, but base them in Perth and have because there's a lot of expats based in Australia, and that could be a thing there, as well as having a Super Rugby team also in America. So that was the two rumors. But I was like, I wouldn't do a Super Rugby team in America. I just do what I think, where I just get rid of one of the Australian teams and bring the Jaguars back. That's what I personally would do, because I thought the Jaguars were awesome.
I don't think getting rid of I know the Rebels are in administration right now, and that's a real shame for that organization and their fans. But I think it could be one of the best things in retrospect to ever have happened to Australian rugby. The fact that they've got too many teams and not enough talent. If they can, make those teams a little bit more competitive to get into, make those spots a little more scarce, it's going to raise the cream to the top. That cream is going to create more of a winning culture. They've got way better chance of taking out titles, being consistently, winning, getting victories over New Zealand teams week to week, and that'll be better for the competition as well. Geez, what? This is a sad situation when you've got a diehard Kiwi fan just going, I just don't want my opposition to suck. You have
to say it's completely true. I mean, we all want. I mean, even though Australia is not in the best place at the moment, we all want them to do well, because it betters the whole of the Southern Hemisphere. It helps rugby grow in that sense, and with them doing the British Lions tour and hosting the next World Cup, like, you want them to be kind of in the best kind of place possible to kind of put a fight in at the end of the day. But
that World Cup's not going to be a massive shitter. We'll see. Yeah, we need fans at that. You need fans at that.
I think it'll be good. I honestly think the British and Irish Lions tour and the World Cup is going to be great in terms of fans. I actually don't have I think it's going to be awesome, because I mean, maybe this is me being a bit brainwashed, but I recently watched the 2013 documentary for the Lions, and I just thought the fans in that one were like incredible. And I mean, I saw the recent kind of games for, I guess, like the Super Rugby finals. Well, I mean, I was watching the Reds one and the Waratahs, but like, the crowds are just always good when it comes towards that, like, kind of the big games and all that. So I actually think it'll be good. I actually honestly think the crowds will be good. Right. And I think Australia will do better.
I don't mean to bring the podcast too down, but I've got a terrible situation here, Philip. I've just found a Jenga piece on my table, which means now that there's a Jenga set that's missing a Jenga piece.
Does that mean you've lost?
Well, it just feels very.
The tower fell over.
Yeah, exactly. The tower feels very, very unsatisfying if it's missing one. Anyway,
is it around somewhere?
What's that? Sorry.
Is there around somewhere? Like, is there a big Jenga tower in your house?
Well, yeah, there's a Jenga tower somewhere in my house, but now I'm like, well, you know what I know about myself? I'm going to put this down somewhere and forget about it, and it's never going to get home. It's never going to make it. It's never going to make it. What about the Six Nations, lads? We haven't even talked about it. 45 minutes in. What are your thoughts? Who's going to win?
Yeah, you go ahead. Like, I mean, you're the guest. We want to hear your take first.
Did you just throw the Uno reverse card in?
Yeah, exactly.
You asked the question straight away. You were like, you answer it.
I think I'm really confident about Italy this year. I think it's their year. I think they're really going to get up.
Great job.
No, I reckon. I think France. Just due to the fact that it's either France or Ireland for me, but they get the edge with the fact that they're playing in Marseille, I think, and they're not. That's pretty crucial. If it was in Dublin, it might be advantage to Ireland. I think also the loss of Johnny Sexton. I've always thought that Ireland in the last few years looks a little rudderless when they don't have Sexton on the field, and that's a new reality they need to get used to. So, who is it, Carberry or whoever they're going to have in there now? Is it Carberry or some other Irish?
Jack Crowley, I believe, is the
Crowley. Yeah. Whoever, and that's untested. I know quality player, but untested at international level. So I think France, but I'm really interested to see how Scotland goes as well. I would be thrilled if Scotland got up and won it, but I think it's unlikely, and it'll be interesting to see how a lot of so many interesting points around it. I think England finished the World Cup strong. Unlucky not to make the final, incredibly. And if they are able to, if that was the, if that ignited something in them, to be able to take that forward and go in with that sort of momentum would be great. And even the Wales didn't have a terrible World Cup, so it'll be. There's a lot. They've all got so much to play for, and a lot of teams that are very butthurt. Like France and Ireland. That anguish they would have gone through in the World Cup will be pretty severe, considering like Ireland having the best team they've ever had, being number one team in the world. This is their best chance to not. obviously they want to win it, but by God, that quarterfinal curse is just gnarly. It's a gnarly one, and the fact that they fell short at the quarterfinal again, that's got to do some massive, deep psychological damage to them in a way. And then on the other hand, other side of that, France, they're once again they're the best French team I can really think of in my lifetime, with the best player in the world at that, with them to fall over in France. That was their best shot at the World Cup in a long, when are they going to have a shot that good again? It's hard to imagine when. Okay. And it's just one of my
wanted the Jenga piece back.
That's right.
I found it.
Yeah, so it's gonna be pretty hard for them to sort of get over that as well. But I think getting into some rugby is probably the thing they need, and they'll be pretty vengeful about it and wanting to put in a pretty good performance, I'd say. Yeah. I don't know. Did I answer the question? So my answer is France. There you go. Long answer. Yeah. Okay. What about you, Hamish?
Well, I think that you have hit the nail on the head in terms of France or Ireland. The thing is, so many great players are missing the Six Nations. Like you said, Johnny Sexton for the Irish, Antoine Dupont for France will no longer be there.
Gone to play sevens. That's crazy.
And I mean, at the moment, France going pretty decent in the sevens, so possibly Olympic contenders with Dupont in there as well. But I've said this the whole way through. I think that World Cup proved as well that without Dupont, France is still a very tough side. They've got Couillou. They've also got Luku, another great option for them at halfback. So I don't think that will stop their momentum. But like you said, it's who's going to fight back better from that loss. Who's going to be ready to put those boots back on and say, right, international rugby, this Six Nations, it could be very competitive. England, I feel like they're a little bit of a dark horse because, yes, they've got so many changes in their squad, but we've seen in the past that that's not actually a bad thing in some teams' cases. So I don't think many people are considering them as even close to favourites, but they'll be a team we've got to keep a side eye on. Just keeping an eye on what they're doing. First game going up against the Welsh.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I know that that's actually on at the same time as Munster versus Crusaders, which I am, of course, extremely annoyed about because there's not two of me. So it means that we have to make a decision.
Munster versus who?
The Crusaders.
What the flip?
Well,
yeah.
I love a bit of club versus club competition versus competition. We'll brush upon that very shortly. But for my pick, of course, for the Six Nations, I'm going to go with Ireland. I know that they're away from home for that first game, but I think they sneak it up against the French. And, no, I don't know now that I think about it.
Well, funny story, though, because I once snuck one up against the French and I got put in jail for that. So, you shouldn't sneak one up against the French.
Yeah. Lessons by Tony. That could be like a new segment just for the channel. Like,
don't sneak one up against them. Well, so you've said Ireland, but then you've gone back on it, and now you're not saying anybody.
I've become impartial again. But
God.
You know what? Because you said France, I'm going to go Ireland, and that forces Tim to have to make a different decision about another team.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. I actually don't think I think this is the most open Six Nations we're gonna have in a very long time because one, it's after Rugby World Cup, and I honestly think, like you said, like there's so many players that are missing out, but it's like for every team. Like it's not just like there's one big player missing out for one team. It's like every team has a big player that's missing out that you can name. So it's one of those like where I just think every team is gonna be short of players, and they're not gonna have the kind of the best starting 15 available towards them. So it's gonna be one of those where I generally look at the fixtures. I know that's obviously that's the way I kind of go about it when I look at kind of who I'm predicting. And I honestly think France and England actually have the best fixture run in terms of like what they have, because France, I mean, they start off with, Ireland at home, then they have Scotland away, which is arguably they're probably their toughest game in my opinion. And then they have Italy at home, which is they'll do well in. They have Wales away, and then they have England at home. So it's one of those where France has a really good run of fixtures there, I'd say. And then, but for England, they actually have like Italy away, then they have Wales at home, then they have Scotland away, Ireland at home, and then they play France away. So it's one of those like where I definitely like rank France as the best fixture, but Ireland, I just think it's like France, England, I'd probably say Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Italy as like the fixture run in terms of everything. But I don't know. I have a funny feeling. I'm actually looking either at England and Scotland actually as one of the two.
Right.
I actually don't think Ireland or France will win it. That's a bold goal to say, but it's just one of those where with France, with the amount of players that are missing for them, like you said, Dupont. I mean, you don't have Flamand, you don't have there's so many players. Anthony Delange is also out. They don't have Makalou. They don't have is Roman Ntamack available? I don't even think he's still available. Is he available or not? I don't think he is. And then I think also I heard doubts about Matthew Jalabert, also maybe doubts about him. He had a recent injury that Pete picked up. So that's another player that could be out for France. Then there's like, it's like France, I don't think are going to have their best team. And it's just one of those where in Ireland, like you said, it comes down towards Sexton at the end of the day in terms of having a new 10 and like he's young. And don't get me wrong, Jack Crowley is actually a great 10 in terms of the potential he has. And I actually think he'll do very well in that 10 spot. But it's one of those when you play your first Six Nations and you're given that for every game, it's going to be really interesting to see how well he does. Because, again, I mean, he has a brilliant coach under him with Andy Farrell, and the team is set up with a ton of experience under their belt. So they definitely have the ability to do it. It's just that I don't think Ireland's fixtures are that kind of them compared to the other teams. And, I mean, when you look at Scotland as well, I mean, Scotland they have a decent run. I mean, they have Wales away, which will be we'll see what happens there. They have France at home, which could determine a lot really in this Six Nations, I believe. They have England at home, Italy away, Ireland away. So it's one of those where it's a very iffy, I'd say, kind of fixture list there. But I don't know. I actually think England is probably the team I'm looking at if I had to say a team to say the win. That's the team I'm kind of going off. I know obviously they're missing a few players as well. Yeah, they don't have Owen Farrell.
Can you, when they're getting pumped by France again by 45 points, I just really want you to replay that a little. I'm going
to regret this, by the way, because I'm not supporting the English. I'll be supporting the French during that game. But I've just now said that the English. It's one of those
it's a bold call. It's a bold call, but I think there's some method to your madness there.
I actually think. You know what? I'm saying England will win, but if I had to make my honest prediction in terms of everything, I think England could actually come second in this Six Nations. Like that's the way I can see it. As I think.
So who's going to win though, Tim? Tim, who's going to win? Tell me, would you? Tell me.
Who's the team above England? You got England second.
Yeah.
I think
you sound like you're giving yourself
so annoyed because I'm looking at I'm thinking this just fixture wise England, they'll beat Italy, they'll beat Wales.
There's only 6 teams. You got to.
They're going to beat Scotland. They're going to beat Ireland, I think, but I think they may lose to France. But then with France, I think they may lose to Scotland. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to say England. I'm saying England. Yeah.
Well, that's a.
It's going to come down towards goal difference. The difference, I think, though. I think they'll be on the same amount of points. I think that's the way I'm going to do it. If
England are able to get some more in the old onion bag, they'll definitely win. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
exactly. But is there a player, at least just on your point of view, that you think there could be a standout player in this Six Nations?
I always enjoy watching the Irish loose forwards, so I'm really looking forward to seeing. I think it's in a bold call to make Peter Mahoney, the captain. And I'd like to see Kellen Dorison number 6, but then they've kind of shoehorned themselves into having Peter there. And he's a different kind of captain, isn't he? Because the captain can obviously be like a level, follow me lads, but quite a even keel, kind of steady kind of communicates with the referee in a respectful way, gives messages back to the team, keeps a cool head. But he's not that kind of captain. He's a fiery, get under the skin of everybody else, and that's interesting, and that's a little bit different. And for me, that doesn't the sort of captain that I think is naturally going to, do the job particularly well, but he's such a great player and he's so effective on the field. I think he should do all those things, but I think it's really interesting that they've made him the national captain. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes in that respect.
Yeah. What about you, Hamish, then? Who's your kind of one to watch play?
Well, I like the loose forward trios, just like Tony. And I think that I'm going to mention a player for a team that we haven't really mentioned too much throughout these predictions. And I'm going to go with Jack Morgan for Wales.
Yes.
I feel like
I would scrap that, by the way. He's injured.
Oh, no. Oh.
I'm sorry to ruin that, man.
Night, Tim.
Exactly.
Is he injured? What's wrong with him? Get him back.
Yeah.
There's too many players that are just injured. I mean, I have to look right now to see how out.
Give him a Panadol and tell him to get out there.
Yeah, it says here, Wales captain Jack Morgan likely to miss the tournament. So
likely to. Doesn't mean it's 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this was made a month ago. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see an update if there is something, but...
You know what? I'm still going with him. I feel like once he comes back, he's going to be handy. It's the cop-out answer, but I was so happy. I said it with my chest, and then I was told no. So.
Yeah, exactly. Way to shit on Hamish.
I'm
sorry. Just I had to let him know.
Holy shit.
You need him to come up with the player that is going to play for a longer time, let's just say, than Jack Morgan throughout this competition. Who would that be then, from your opinion?
Right,
got to be Jack Morgan.
Gotta think of another team that's
Jack Morgan
2.0.
Yeah, a bit lower.
Yeah, the player that plays in Jack Morgan's place. He'll be my. Is that the player that could be it?
Well, we're not going to have Lewis Rees-Zammit, of course, either, because he is
let's
chasing
stop
the
talking about
NFL.
players. We're talking about players that aren't going to be playing. Let's talk about a player that is going to be playing.
There's so many that aren't playing, though.
Okay, I'm going to name Pod. I'm going to name all the players.
Well, that's the thing. It's so easy to pick an Irishman or a Frenchman, isn't it? Because you've got some of those guys such as Damien Pinot. I'm just injured Tim, or is he all right? He's good. He's good. Buddy as well, the other one.
Hamish, you need to stand by your own call. You don't need validation from us.
You don't need validation by me, mate. Just go with it. I'll tell you.
Hamish, I feel like you're respecting me for some sort of romantic relationship, and I'm all in, pal. So, yeah, you tell me about Damien.
That's why you invited me to your house, Tony. I know what you're up to.
Yes, I know. It's all.
Is that offer still on the table, by the way? Not for that kind of thing, but yeah.
Well, yes, whenever you like that.
We're going golfing, aren't we?
Yeah, go play some golf. I went to a few driving ranges today, actually. I went to a
few of them.
Yeah, well, it's Auckland anniversary day, and then I did I was meant to go to this place I went to the driving range, one that's near my ex-wife's house, and it's a shit one, but it's a driving range, but it's a real dunger. And then I was meant to go to this golf simulation place with a mate of mine, but then the place wasn't open because it's Auckland anniversary day. And then he was like, "Oh, don't worry about it." And then I was like, "Oh, fuck, I still want to hit some balls." So I went to another driving range. So I hit about 200 balls today.
Nice.
Wow. And it turns out I still suck at golf after those 200 balls. Yeah.
Make sure the back is all good.
Yeah, back's fine. Back's fine. Thanks. You play golf, Tim?
No. My mom and dad absolutely love golf. It's one of those where, just in a funny way, the way that my dad proposed to my mom was by giving her kind of a golf club, because they played golf together a lot, and they played in competitions back in the day. And
holy shit, you'd think that their son was going to be freaking a pro,
maybe like Tiger Woods. You never know, but no, I've told one of my good mates plays golf on a regular, and he's a very powerful shot. But it's just one of those. I just never got into golf. I don't know. I mean, I love a lot of sports, but just golf isn't just one of them. It just doesn't.
Don't worry, you'll get old. You'll get old. You get into it when you're old.
Yeah. To be fair, I actually had this conversation today because one of my mates is working now at a golf simulator, and he was just telling me like, yeah, mate, I mean, I'm gonna play golf when I'm older. But I was like, yeah, but I think I'm probably gonna swim when I'm older because I just think that's the sport. I love swimming generally. Like I try to swim at least like 3 times a week if possible. So, and that's just something you can do for the rest of your life, really. So I feel like that's the sport I'll try to keep up.
I think I'm probably gonna sink when I'm older. That's what I'm
You have to wear like the little the patch to keep you up, right?
Yeah, the wings.
Yeah, the wings.
I'm gonna be an 85-year-old with water wings. Going, I can float, but I just can't be fucked.
Nice. But getting back to Hamish, you're one to watch player. What is?
I'm going Bundyaki.
I
feel like he's the one I was gonna go with. As in an obvious
Wait, I thought you said Jack Walker.
Stop trying to validate it. Just stand by it. Bundyaki, great player, had a hell of a season last year. Like, but looked like a world beater at the World Cup. Fabulous player.
Was that because he was with Sexton?
Oh, I don't know. Like he was just bumping off players and running amazing lines. Obviously, it's great to have a good 10 on the inside of you to do that sort of stuff. But boy, oh boy, he was looking world class. Why are you laughing at a good 10 on the inside of you? Have you never had a good 10 on the inside of you, Hamish? I bet you have. I bet you have.
No, I was out on the wing playing rugby and didn't touch the ball because the 10 wouldn't pass, unfortunately. All right,
so. Yeah, okay. So
okay.
Can't say I've experienced it.
10 didn't want to touch you with a 10-foot barge ball, sadly. Bugger. Oh well.
That's a shame. But I will mention that with Bundyaki, like in the last Six Nations, Sexton didn't play, and Bundyaki was still pretty exceptional in that one. So I think he could be spot on maybe with that pick as well.
Did he not play last year?
Well, not on the Six Nations, no, because he was still a bit injured. He
came into the Leinster Munster game and told Jaco Piper that he was a piece of shit. What did he do? He went up and said, "You're a disgrace."
I can't remember.
You're an effing disgrace.
Exactly. Yeah.
Refereeing is tough. It's tough.
It was interesting. But no, I think from my perspective, I'd say one to watch. I mean, if I'm going, along the lines of England, I'm going to go with Ben Earl. I just think he had a good World Cup, I think, for England, and a lot of people are still a bit like conflicted if he plays at 7 or at 8. I mean, again, he played most of the time at 8. And I think he's a good 8. I think he's a good ball carrying 8, which is something what you need actually in that position. I mean, I think the only other player who beat him in that stat was Artis Sevilla, if I'm not mistaken, because he had the most throughout the tournament. But I mean, Ben Earl was great throughout it, and I think he'll be able to kind of continue that form for the English. But again, it depends also because I'm not really sure who they're also going to go in terms of that loose forward pack because they're still a bit mixed in. There's a lot of options there because if Courtney Law is obviously now not playing international rugby, the 6 is now open for conversation. The 7 is also there, but again, you can put Ben Earl there if you wanted to and put some at 8. But it's a bit all over the place at the moment. But no matter what, I think Ben Earl should definitely be a player that I'm definitely watching out for this Six Nations.
Well, if you're watching out for him, I'm going to watch out for him too, Tim.
Good. Like to hear that. I mean, in terms of the times actually, because I'm a bit interested for the Six Nations for you guys. It's pretty good actually in terms of the. Is it good? No. Oh, hey, Mr. Shane, just no.
The only game that I'm going to watch live this week is France versus Ireland because it's at 9 a.m. But every other game can kiss my ball sack.
I'll watch them. That game's at 4 a.m. for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh. It's a lot of the games here in Hong Kong are not. Whenever it's the Six Nations, it's terrible timing. But whenever it's rugby, it's awesome. It's great.
Watching. I think Asia's not a bad spot to watch New Zealand sport, Australian sport, or even American sport. You get
no. It's great. It's great. Yeah, literally, it's just the Northern Hemisphere, of course, which obviously the timing is.
European sport can suck some balls. Yeah. That's the quote of the podcast, guys.
But yeah, I think that's. Is there? I mean, the last thing we did want to talk about before we end is just talking about those kind of like club, clashes, Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere with Crusaders, Munster as one. We do also have the Blues and Chiefs heading up to Japan to play some of the Japanese top League One teams there as well.
Right.
I can't. I think it's. I know Wild Knights is one of them because I know one of the fixtures Blues are playing, but I can't remember the other team as well as what the Chiefs are playing. But it's cool to see that. Like, what's your take on that in terms of like a new concept for rugby?
Could not. In terms of us playing the Japanese teams, I will struggle to get excited for it, just due to the fact I know nothing about the Japanese teams. Really, I don't want to. I sometimes will watch a highlight here and there, but I don't follow any of the teams or anything like that. So that's on me. I'm not overly excited. But the Crusaders versus Munster sounds intriguing. But it's at the end of the day, it's preseason stuff, so I don't get excited about preseason. Really,
yeah,
it's just
fair enough.
It's a preseason money spinner, I guess. It'd be hopefully, if there was something riding on it, like maybe if it was part of a wider sort of international club competition. Yep, interest there, but it's just to give players some experience and also get some game time. And it's not spinning my wheels super hard. What about you, Hamish? Is it revving your gears? Is it juicing your juice? Is it getting your spark plug sparked? Is it getting you excited?
Well, it was till it's come around, right? Because it was on paper, great concept. Winner of the URC versus winner of Super Rugby. But timing-wise, for one, Munster not going to have all their players because, of course, all the Irish internationals playing in the Six Nations. So that doesn't really give us a fair indication.
No.
Crusaders, they haven't played any matches at this stage up till now. So that doesn't give us much of an indication there. Plus their first game back without all of their big international stars. Yeah. Also, they made it overlap with one of the games of the Six Nations, so you've pretty much taken away some of your audience, because this could have been the perfect window to open up the opportunity of a Club World Cup. And they had rumours about maybe doing something along those lines. But the execution of it in terms of the timing, I feel like they've kind of made it so that I don't want to say they want it to fail, but it probably will not bring the same, I guess, energy that they first anticipated because of all of the awkward timings. Like, it's a 6 a.m. game in New Zealand. You can't help that, of course, with it being played in Ireland. But, 1 weekend prior, 1 weekend where the Six Nations isn't being played or something along those lines, just to get some more people in it. I think so.
Yeah.
And I hope that they don't look at it, if it does fail, and be like, so no Club World Cup. No one wants it. Because people do. They just don't
it's
get
not a
the
fair
chance
reflection. Like, the fact that I didn't even know any of this was happening is not. Well, to be fair, I go on once we finish, like, basically November rugby, the international tour, but in this case, what's earlier than that because of the World Cup. Yeah. Like, especially with the loss that we have, I'm like, rugby can go jump off a cliff for 3 months while I'm on the beach. Notice, Hamish, there I didn't say anything rude and I didn't swear, even though I was very close to. So I go on a very, very strict no rugby diet over summer, and then it makes me excited to actually get into some rugby.
I agree. I think you mentioned it.
You need an off season.
And you mentioned this, I saw on your podcast as well, but like how it's good how the Southern Hemisphere, it's good that we actually have a break after, if it's like the kind of November internationals or what we've had now with the World Cup. At least the players are kind of relaxing for a bit and then come back into the season. Whereas for the for the French and for the English and all the South Africans who are now playing in these different leagues in the Northern Hemisphere, they just go straight into it. So it's one of those where you kind of just don't get that little break in between. But I guess obviously they get a break now, kind of in a way, because with the Six Nations happening, that's kind of the break they're kind of given. But I still think it's good. Actually, I think that's the one thing that the Southern Hemisphere actually has over the Northern Hemisphere in terms of player welfare, is that they actually have this break in between and helps them relax and kind of build up for the Super Rugby season, and in any case for any other league. But it's just one of those where I'm all for it actually at the end of the day. And I think it's, in terms of these competitions, I think like I would love to see it if they could, because Hamish did mention that if this could be scheduled in between the break of the Six Nations, because of course there is always that one break that happens in between. But I think I could be wrong in saying this, but that could come close to the time where Super Rugby just is about to start, and I'm not sure if they would be able to kind of schedule it in time because traveling reasons and all this kind of stuff that comes in between it. So yeah, it's one of those where I'm not really sure how a Club World Cup will come in because it seems like they've already announced obviously the whole schedule around, I guess, international rugby starting from 2025, I believe, or 2026. I'm not sure how it goes, but how there'll be a whole tier 1 thing and tier 2, but they haven't really announced anything for club rugby. So it's a bit of a just what if situation at the moment. But no, I'm definitely intrigued by the concept.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by both of you. So, I don't know. I always find the need to say something stupid, and I apologize. It's
perfect. It's perfect. That's why we have you on here, by the way. That's exactly why you're on here.
I take pills for it. I see a counselor about it.
I didn't expect that one, but
yeah, and I get basically. And it was interesting talking to a doctor about this compulsion to say stupid shit. And I got a diagnosis, and he gave me a piece of paper, and it just said, "It's because you're." That was it. That was you're. That was my diagnosis, and I was like, "Oh, because." So there we go. That's what the doctor said.
I thought it would have been the heavy drinking.
Look, I'm not even drinking at all.
Yeah, he's out of water. What are you on about?
I'm on the waters. I'm sorry. I swore again. Not on a wine. Not drinking at all today. There we go. It's Monday, mate. Don't drink during the week generally unless I want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
When you watch the rugby, you're like, okay.
I felt like my doctor's diagnosis line really fell flat there. But hey, you gotta shoot some shots. But it happens. You know what it's like, don't you, Hamish?
By shooting shots.
Yeah. That's
eventually
right.
One of them hit.
Yeah, exactly. You know what Wayne Gretzky said? He said, his famous line is, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
Yeah.
There you go. Taking shots. There you go.
Do you know? Actually, I want to test Hamish here. Do you know who Wayne Gretzky is? Do you know what sport he plays?
What he plays? He's either basketball or hockey, I would say.
Which is it?
It's one of the two. I'll give you that. It's one of the two.
Gretzky sounds like he would have punched a bloke in the head, but I would say that probably basketball. Not just because Tony's.
Don't listen to Tony. He's fooling you.
It's ice hockey, bro. Hockey.
It's ice hockey.
Oh,
Gretzky
does sound
hockey player of all time.
You had it. You just a little punch in there, but
I was throwing you off. All right, lads.
But but yeah, no, I think that's kind of it really now with the episode. We've covered every topic we could. Again, thank you for obviously coming on, Tony. We're gonna definitely have you on for a few more times, of course. And yeah, just thanks for taking your time.
No worries. An absolute pleasure, boys, and loving the podcast. When I get around to watching it, it's a treat having you guys do your thing. But yeah, interesting to see how the Six Nation goes, and I'm sure we'll catch up a few times throughout the year, whether it's in here or me and very very hungoverly talking after one of
the Kiwi Lad stream. We just remember the Kiwi Lad stream, and
one of Hamish's live streams at 3 a.m, and me being like, I haven't slept. Yeah. And talking absolute gibberish, which is what I feel like I've done here. So thanks for having me on, boys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, I know it's been good. But yeah, just guys, make sure to like the video, guys. Subscribe to our channel. Make sure to obviously check out Distracted Sports as well. Make sure to check out the Kiwi Lads, and yeah, make sure to check out Rugby Itch. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.